The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Good evening and welcome to Bronx Talk. Tonight it's the debate for the Democratic primary in the 36th State Senatorial District, a district that includes the Bronx neighborhoods of Eastchester, Wakefield, Baychester, and Edenwald. It also stretches into the city of Mount Vernon. There's no incumbent in this race as Ruth Hassel Thompson has stepped down and now has a position in the governor's office. The candidates in tonight's race are Jamal Bailey, a graduate of the CUNY School of Law and currently the communications director for Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie; Ed Mulrain, former president of the Williamsbridge NAACP and pastor of Unity Baptist Tabernacle Church in Mount Vernon; Pamela Hamilton Johnson, a longtime community advocate and former school board president; Reverend Q. English, a longtime community activist and pastor in the Bronx Christian Fellowship Church. And he is not here yet at this point, but Alvin Ponder, a doctor, educator, and civil rights activist, is also running in this race. Tonight's debate is co-sponsored by the League of Women's Voters, a nonpartisan political organization that advocates for informed and active participation in government and works to increase understanding of major public policy issues. As usual, we are thrilled to have them on board. The primary election is Tuesday, September 13th, and all eligible voters are encouraged to vote. Candidates, good evening. Nice to have you with us. In tonight's debate, I will direct a question to one candidate. That candidate will respond, and then we will have a free-flowing dialogue that each candidate can participate in, with the original respondent having the final say on the question before the next question is asked. At the end of the program, each candidate will be given the opportunity to deliver a 1-minute closing statement. Please note that tonight's questions include those submitted by the candidates themselves. By prior agreement, the first question will be directed to you, Mr. Bailey. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, Gary. Happy to be here.
As you might know, we were talking about it beforehand. I've moderated more than 50 political debates on this program, and as I reviewed the experiences of each of the 5 candidates in this race, I found that each has a record of community building, a record of service, and many other admirable qualities for state Senate candidates. So congratulations to each of you. But that doesn't make it easier for voters to choose. So we'll start with you, Mr. Bailey, and I'm sure everybody's going to want to weigh on this. What are the most important qualities that voters should consider when sorting out who they want to vote for in this primary, especially since in this competition there really are 5 candidates with strong qualifications?
Well, as you said, it's a lot of people who are qualified, but at the end of the day, you need to look at experience, and I have significant experience in government, specifically in the state legislature. Having worked with Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie, I feel like I know the ins and outs of government. I interned with him 12 years ago, and I actually came up with an idea for legislation that ended up being passed into law. It was regulating something called nicotine-laced water, and it was a score for public health. It was a public health victory, and I really feel very proud about that accomplishment. In addition to that, I have significant roots in the community, and a tree is only as strong as its roots, and my roots are firmly implanted in the soil of the 36th Senatorial District. I've never lived or voted anywhere else. I don't intend to live or vote anywhere else, and I believe that those two things, when you add them up, experience and roots in the community, would make me the best choice for the state Senate seat.
Thank you very much. I guess we'll go right down the row with this one. So, Mr. Mulrain.
Yeah, hi. How you doing, Gary? Good to see you. I think that we need to look at experience, but we also need to look at experience and proven leadership. And I think I bring that quality to the district for over 30 years. fighting in the district for quality education. As stated, I'm a former Williamsbridge NAACP president for housing, for quality education, and continue to fight to this day in both sides of the districts. I think when you look at it, you have to look at leadership in the Bronx, and since it includes Mount Vernon, also in Mount Vernon. And I'm the only candidate that has fought hard in those districts with proven leadership. And I will continue to do that. And my roots are born in the Bronx, raised in the Bronx, moved to Mount Vernon, and have the leadership qualities there and a proven record that stretches, like I said, for over 30 years. So I think that proven leadership is what will be the key to determining who will be best when they get to the state Senate.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Johnson, for you.
I think a smart voter will look at the candidates and figure out what are the issues that they are near and dear to their heart and pick the candidate that is going to advocate for those issues. For me, I'm an education community advocate, and being on the school board, I have experience in dealing with the UFT, dealing with parents, understanding Common Core. As a parent, I believe that we have a lot of power, and in the 6 out of 8 years that I was there, we brought in $449 million because we bought 6 schools in 8 years. We also brought in $23 million worth of Reso A money that fixed masonry work, that fixed the auditoriums, that fixed a lot of issues that pertain to the school. But I was appointed also by Ruben Diaz Jr. So in that relationship, while I was there, I was able to also advocate for resources in our labs. We got new computers, we have iPads. And so for me, I'm an advocate and a parent that's going to advocate for your children's education. And I have a strong advocacy in that, and that no other candidate here has. So if you want to vote for Pamela Johnson and you want to vote for education, I'm the person for you.
Thank you, Reverend English.
You know, I don't think just by simply working in legislation qualifies you to be the next state senator here. For me, it is about proven leadership, not just junior leadership. It's about what you've done, what you've accomplished. And I think it's a dangerous statement too, because most of the people that you're hearing from now, they're saying, you know, we want change. We don't want the same old, same old. We don't want to be the same status quo. We're saying no to status quo. And so for me, it's just about proven, sustainable leadership. No one in this entire candidate forum can match my accomplishments of what I've accomplished to date here in the Bronx. And I've even accomplished some things in Mount Vernon that my Mount Vernon candidate has not accomplished. So when I think about what's needed, you need a fighter. You need somebody that's not going to just like sit idly by and just and not be creative and innovative in how do we build our community. You need someone that's going to fight for the people on a daily basis. And you need to have somebody that's already fought so that when they go to Albany, it's not about starting a fight, but you're proving your record by beginning your fight now.
Thank you very much. I guess according to our rules, Mr. Bailey, you get the final word.
Absolutely. Well, that's well understood. But at the end of the day, you need to have the requisite knowledge of Albany to be a state senator. This is not a job where you can just have some sort of fanciful or theoretical knowledge of what the job is. I know the job. I know how bills move out of committee. I know how legislation gets passed. And you need somebody that's proven, that understands Albany, that understands legislation, that understands the process, that understands relationships. So it is a strength. You wouldn't just elect somebody for president that had not served in some sort of capacity in government before. For a state senator, you need to make sure that you're selecting somebody that understands government, that has worked there and has those relationships already intact.
Thank you very much. Next question for you, Reverend Mulrain. Two of the candidates in this race are reverends, yes. Q English and Ed Mulrain. The third, Pamela Johnson, began her statement for the video voters guide here at BronxNet with the words, "Praise the Lord." In order to get the Marriage Equality Act passed, 2 New York State senators famously admitted they set aside their personal and religious convictions to vote to approve that. So the question is, where does religion fit into the resume for a state Senate candidate, and where does it fit, or should it fit at all, into one's decision-making while in the legislature?
I have to take the words of Joe Biden when he stated that I'm a religious person, but I don't go around pushing my religion on anybody. I'm simply understanding of who I am. I understand my faith. I'm totally committed to it. But never have I gone around and said that you should be who I am or you should believe what I believe in. My commitment has been to the community. My commitment has been to civil rights as Williamsbridge NAACP president. My commitment has been to domestic violence from women who have suffered under those causes. Whether you're religious or not, we still have an ethical value that we move by in order to make sure that people are treated fairly, justice is served, and that we have a nation that supports and approves everyone, regardless of their status, religious faith, or regardless of their type of lifestyle. We want to be in a position to support everyone. So I've never pushed my religious beliefs on anyone. That's the final statement in that. And I just hope that everyone will understand that. That's really what we're about.
I'm sure, Reverend Q, I'm sure you had something to say.
Yeah, I have to say ditto to that. In addition, I'm not running as a pastor. I'm not running as a religious leader. I'm running as a person that has fought continuously for our community and for all people. It didn't matter what social economic status was or who they were and who they adopted themselves to be. For me, it's about fighting for people and winning for people, fighting injustices on every turn. And that's what I plan to continue once I'm in Albany.
Okay, others want to weigh in on that? Ms. Johnson, sure.
Yes, I always start with praise the Lord, and it's so funny that you brought that up because I didn't start with it, but
You mean tonight you didn't start with it?
Tonight,
All right,
I always
fair
start
enough.
with it, but I'm glad you brought it up. I think that the community really wants to know is that when you're a religious leader, will you allow that to interfere with your decision making in Albany? And we bring that religious part of us wherever we go. Now, are we able to decipher that is religion and this is business up in Albany? And I feel that we need to really listen to our constituents, and whatever the constituents are asking for, that's what we need to advocate for. And I strongly believe in that.
Okay.
I think it's
You
important
can
to
weigh in,
have
sir?
faith. You know, I'm a man of faith as well. Butler Memorial United Methodist Church is my home church, and I'm also, like I said, I'm a man of faith. But I don't believe that being a reverend or a pastor would qualify you or disqualify you. I don't believe it gives you an advantage or a disadvantage. I believe that your faith is your faith, and that's a personal root. So I believe that as far as Reverend Moraine and Reverend English, I don't think that it either makes them better candidates or worse candidates. Their positions.
You got the final word, sir?
I just would say vote for me.
Fair enough.
Religion, and I would support any measure as from the community, because when you say a religious leader, I'm also a civil rights activist. I'm also a former school board member, so I'm an educator. I'm also educated, so I have a lot in common with a lot of different people. So and you look at religious leader, we have all sectors coming into church. I have over 800-900 people at my church, so they come with different values and different positions, and so we cater to them all.
Ms. Johnson, everyone says they want to develop the Bronx with better shopping choices, better restaurants, and of course better housing. But it seems every time something better in the Bronx is proposed, affected communities express fear of gentrification, that longtime Bronxites who have helped build our borough will be priced out. How can we continue to develop the Bronx, but do it in a way that will keep it affordable for those who have lived and worked here?
We have to first have low-income housing. One of the housing initiatives of Mitchell-Lama, I live in the Mitchell-Lama, there's several Mitchell-Lama developments, Co-op City, I think River Towers also as well. They're a Mitchell-Lama, and we have to preserve and sustain low income. I know on this panel we talk about affordable housing and what the definition of affordable housing is, but if it is based on low income, but not just that, also in the NYCHA developments, there's a lot of work that needs to be done in the NYCHA developments. Safety issues, they need cameras in the NYCHA development, and I think that we, instead of New York City trying to take the property from NYCHA developments and developing it for high-rise apartments, I think that it needs to be, the repairs need to be done, the cameras need to be done, and we actually really need to make it a better place for those who are low income and those who are the neediest in our community.
Okay, others on the question of developing the Bronx without pricing people out. Mr. Bailey?
Yeah, at the end, you have to, it's a balancing act, because at the end of the day, you want the Bronx, you want this borough to thrive, not only survive, but you also need to make sure that you're doing it responsibly. If you're doing development, it has to be responsible. You need to make sure that the jobs are prevailing wage. You need to make sure that the people that go to these jobs that we're building for our communities are able to take a good quality wage home to their families so that they can continue to live here. And as Ms. Johnson was mentioning, we need to make sure we're protecting Mitchell-Lama, protecting other scree and dree things so that seniors and folks and tenants, even we might have a lot of homeowners, but we have a lot of tenants as well. We need to make sure that they're protected and that we're going to wall off gentrification as much as possible. You know, the MTA capital plan has been approved, and that's going to bring greater transportation access. But with that greater transportation access, we need to make sure that the people who have spent their entire lives in these communities fighting for the very blocks that they live on cannot be priced out. We need to make sure that that's taking place.
As a former urban,
Let's start with
sorry.
Reverend Q, and then you, sir.
Okay. So we actually have not agreed on the definition of what affordable is. Okay, that's first. That's something that is not like universally accepted. Rent regulations, obviously, yes. Responsible development, that's definitely one of my strengths here on the panel. I was one of 3 negotiators for the Cambridge National Ice Center that penned the Historic Community Benefits Agreement. And my take is, if you're gonna have responsible development, that means that you're gonna take care of the community first. That means when it comes to jobs, it comes to community first. When it comes to procurement, it's local procurement. Through that negotiation, I was able to negotiate 50,000, along with 2 other negotiators, all 3 African-American women. I was able to negotiate 50,000 community space. We negotiated 2,700 construction jobs, 400 other jobs, local procurement, silver lead on the whole green initiative. We said that if you're going to come into our district, you're going to take care of our people. You're not going to go outside of our district. And so for me, responsible development isn't simply, oh, you know, we got this going up and that going up. That's not responsible to me, because you're not taking care of our people. The laborers, another thing that we negotiated, Gary, was the fact that we were able to say that if the people are not qualified to do the work inside, they have to be trained. So job training was also a priority.
Mr.
As a
Mullen.
former urban planner for the city of New York, I know what it means to have gentrification come into a neighborhood and almost rule, especially, let's put it bluntly, Black and Latinos out of the neighborhood. We have to look at it from the perspective of having, yes, responsible development, having affordable housing in our district, but at the same time making sure that those who are coming into our community, that the contracts and the housing developers and all those are realized that the people in the community ought to be maintained and have first rights to that community. I worked in East New York, Brooklyn. I also worked in Harlem, and I worked in White Plains and Mount Vernon. I'm building housing as part of a community development corporation in Mount Vernon right now. And we make sure that the people in that neighborhood, if there's any displacement going on, that they're not displaced out of the community. They have first access to the new housing that's going up in the community, and it's affordable for the community by which we're coming into. So we have to make sure that we preserve the community, but at the same time develop it so that it's not a blight to the rest of the city.
Ms. Johnson, you get the
Last
final
word.
word. Sure.
So in our district, there's a lot of foreclosures. So we need to have more workshops on preventing seniors from losing their houses. We need to have like Catholic Charities or Home Base come into our communities and actually give the resources so that our residents are able to stay where they are without getting evicted from their apartments. I also wanted to say that we need to have tax relief as well. So those who have houses, property tax relief abatements, so that they can able to afford the mortgages that they have.
Thank you very much. Ms. English, let's stay with the topic of building affordable housing. The 421A tax abatement that spurred development of affordable housing since 1971 has expired and so far has not been renewed. Among the sticking points is the requirement for union construction jobs, or as the governor wants, some wage guarantees. In the meantime, affordable housing development is greatly needed. What do you suggest? Do you renew 421A as it was? Does it need to be reformed? What do you think?
I do believe that in prevailing wage, okay? I stood on the forefront of fighting for the living wage bill here in New York City. And that was quite a fight. And we do know that $15 an hour is still considered minimum in anybody's standard. I still consider part of poverty wages. By the time we negotiate the next piece, we're going to need about $20 an hour. And so I think what I would do is I would reform it to make sure that we do include more advantages for our unions to be a part of that process.
Others, 421A,
Let
sure.
the Building Trades and Real Estate Board get together on this. We really need to, the housing crisis is out of control. Yeah. We need to make sure that people are, homelessness is at an all-time high. Even affordable housing isn't being built fast enough. This is a city where vertical space is a lot more plentiful than horizontal space. So I'm really hopeful that they get this resolved. Prevailing wage is something that I really believe we should build union. It's very skilled construction is something that's important. We need to make sure that it's habitable and that we're making sure that the people that are building it, again, like I said earlier, are able to take good quality wages home to their families because of the good
Let me just
craftsmanship.
interject. Let
Sure.
me just interject for those continuing to answer. There's a Republican-controlled Senate at this point, and that's what the sticking point has been. So would you say, okay, we'll take, compromise on that to get 421A passed, or would you hold the line and say absolutely required? So I'll give you a yes or no on that, and then we'll let the others weigh in.
Compromise is always good. However, I do feel like we do need to renegotiate.
I'm an attorney. Negotiation is what I do. We have to negotiate it.
Absolutely.
So
negotiate
Mr.
on
Mulrain, then Ms. Johnson. Go
Well,
ahead.
I just say negotiate on it because
Right.
we need to make sure that we have affordable housing. I mean, I remember 421A, and I think that it was a great opportunity for us to develop housing. I think that being where we are with the homelessness situation, being where we are with gentrification going on in a lot of the communities, we have to get back to a place where we can negotiate to make sure that 421A comes back. And I think it will spur development, it will push for contracts for the minority community, and it will help with for better community relations.
Ms. Johnson.
Building affordable housing or low-income housing is beneficial to the community. It brings jobs into the community. We're all advocating for our residents to be in the pool of job seekers and infrastructure as well. But with the building of low income housing, I think is very productive. It charges the economy, it gives people a place to stay, but it's just not just that. It's also homelessness, and a lot of people think that that it's simple, that if you're homeless, what you need is a home, but it's really more than that. And there are other services that need to go with that, not just with just building affordable housing or low-income housing. There are other services. We're training. Can they sustain, even if they're in that housing, can they sustain it? Can they afford it? Do they have the education? They need to be independent, and it's just not just adding housing.
Ms. English, you get the final
Just
word.
the final thing I'm going to say is that homelessness in New York City, they say, is the highest since the Great Depression. We have to do more.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bailey, back to you. You are rightly proud of the many endorsements you have received from leadership in the Bronx, but does it come with a price tag? In other words, can you see yourself opposing, say, the Assembly Speaker, who you currently work for, on an issue? And if so, what issue would that be?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, Carl's a Yankee fan. I'm a Met fan, so that's we're opposite sides of that. He's a Cowboys fan. I'm a Giants fan, so we oppose each other all the time. But at the end of the day, I'm my own person. My situation, the endorsements I have do not define me. Actually, quite a few organizations who have not been with the county organization, such as the Transport Workers Union, who endorsed Adriano Espaillat and Bernie Sanders that went against the Bronx County organization, supported me. Citizens Union, I got their endorsement today, and they traditionally do not endorse quote-unquote machine candidates. I'm very proud of who I am and what I'm getting. I'm getting it because I've earned it, because I'm a quality candidate.
Others? Ms. English first, then Ms. Johnson.
I disagree about the endorsement piece. He's endorsed because he's Carl Hasty's candidate. And these unions are not going to go against Carl Hasty, the third man in the room, when it comes to him providing what they need at the end of the day. So we're not talking about because you deserve it. I'm the only one that stood with a 32 BJ to get arrested every year for airport workers and car workers. When it comes time for protests, and who do they call? They call Reverend Q English, because they know I will speak. And they know I will speak up for the least of these. When I got arrested, nobody here has stood there with me with 32 BJ. I fought with them on every instance, being there at 6 o'clock in the morning. RWSCU working alongside of them, passing the living wage bill and fighting for them. So don't tell me that you got these endorsements because you deserved it. You got the endorsements because Carl Hasty is backing you.
That's completely inaccurate.
First, we'll give you a chance. Ms. Johnson and Mr. Mulrain, and you get the final word, sir.
I do totally agree with that. And someone who has as many endorsements as a district leader, I feel that when people give you an endorsement, they expect things back from you. And at a certain point, you're in their pocket. So you're a pocket politician, they pull your strings. They can tell, because they want favors. Nobody gives anything or any kind of endorsement without wanting something back. And for me, that's not the type of candidate that I want to be. I want to be able to advocate for my community and be able to speak what I need to speak and not have 12 different people behind me telling me what to do. I do believe that as a candidate under Carl Hastie, that he does ride on his coattails, and that they're trying to push the agenda. If they really, really, really wanted to vet us, they would have done that, and that was not done. He was appointed as the person to go. They never met with any one of us, and we are all qualified for that.
Mr. Moraine, I'm sure you, Mr. Bailey, has a lot to say about
I went
it.
to every last one of those the unions in order to get their endorsement, and unfortunately they had decided that all of them said that they were going with Bailey. Just about every last one of them. Understandable. I would have taken it if they would have gone with me too. However you get it, you get it. But at the same time, at the end of the day, because I believe I have the community support, we will take them, we will take all of it, and we will go forth and go to Albany and win the New York State Senate race. But if you could get it any way you could get it, you go ahead and get it. But at the same time, we're going to run anyhow.
Just a guess, Mr. Bailey has something to say
Absolutely.
about it.
You know, it's interesting because everybody also, like Mr. Moraine just mentioned, everybody went before these unions to garner their support. But when you don't get it, all of a sudden, well, now it's some sort of big conspiracy. Why isn't it because I'm qualified? Why isn't it because I've spent my entire life in that district? Because I've been working for the Speaker of the Assembly? Because I'm from that community and I understand the issues and concerns that are happening with transportation, with issues and other issues, many issues and concerns with labor. My grandfather was a Teamster. My grandmother was a nurse. I understand what's happening with our brothers and sisters in labor. And if you're going to talk about special interest being labor, labor's not a special interest. They're the hardest working folks that we have out here. So if you're going to call them me being in their pockets, then I don't understand what that notion is about at all. Very hard working folks, and I take umbrage to that.
Thank you
Can I just
very
say
much.
something?
I think the part was
All right,
also,
let's go around again. We'll give you the final word
I
again.
think the part also that was important to mention, and that's this, because none of us met with the Bronx County leadership. I don't think they interviewed anybody. When it came to Mount Vernon, they interviewed everybody.
Yes, they did.
The Bronx County leadership, however, whoever they are, and they did not have an open forum. They did not call us to a meeting. They did not say anything. So I think that is where the question really lies. At least we would have an opportunity. If we would have had an opportunity to go before them, that would have been one thing. But like I said, at the end of the day, however you get it, you get it. That doesn't stop me from running and seeking and making sure that we win this race, even without the county or the unions that didn't see fit to endorse.
Okay, others
But this stifles the voice of the people when you keep having a Democratic Party who keeps taking their employees and running. I saw your show the other day. Aisha was on the show. She's also running as well. They're employees of Assemblyman Carl Hastie. So,
although to be fair, she was not endorsed by the county.
I understand that,
organization.
but she's still a part. She's still an employee of the Assemblyman. And what I'm trying to say is that if you really want grassroots candidates to be a part and you want to be able to see what's in the community, the Democratic Party is not being fair at all. And they're not even looking to be fair.
Okay.
This is not this is not even a democratic process. That's why I'm like so loving the fact that I'm going against the status quo. I'm loving the fact that I'm about change because things need to change. It needs to change. Even after the unions didn't endorse me, I was fine because I'm still going to work with them. Why? Because I'm about people. So if they call me tomorrow, I'm still going to show up because I'm not fighting with them because they're the union. I'm fighting with them because I care for people. 1199 didn't even interview me. They didn't even call me for an interview. And that's fine because I understand where all the ties and all the links are. And that's fine. And so I'm not knocking the fact that he was endorsed. I'm just saying don't say that you're simply endorsed only because you qualify. There's other strings attached to that endorsement. That's the point I'm making.
This will be the final word.
1199, 32 BJ, DC 37, they didn't call me either. I reached out because I'm a candidate and that's what I wanted to do. I sought their endorsement. So in terms of, again, this sort of theoretical thing that because of who I'm affiliated with, that's why I got it. That's simply nonsense. I've earned what I've gotten. Carl Hastie didn't get me to the Bronx High School of Science. He didn't make me pass the bar in the first try. So I know how to do things on my own, okay? And that's what I'm going to do as a state senator in 36th Senatorial District, get results.
But you have to keep it in context of the Assembly and
All
of
right.
the Senate, though. We're not talking about high school. We're not talking about
But
you
you're
going
talking
to
about
college.
accomplishments. You're
We're
talking
not talking
about-
about law
you
school.
specifically said
Everybody
riding
is
coattails, man.
qualified to be in the
Thank
seat
you.
that they're sitting in.
I think we're all going to take a deep breath. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back. We'll do the second half of our debate with the candidates running in the Democratic primary for the 36th Senatorial District. Yes, it just did get hotter in here. We'll be right back.
Being prepared is a part of who you are, but it's especially important in the case of a disaster. Be informed about possible emergencies in your area. Make a plan that covers where you'll go in an emergency. Build a kit with the things you need to survive. There's no one more capable of planning for your situation than you. Start your plan today. Go to ready.gov/myplan.
I want to eat apples and bananas. I need to eat apples and bananas. Why can't I eat?
1 in 5 children struggles with hunger in America. Support the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks to help provide meals to those in need. Join us at feedingamerica.org.
There's one thing you can never have sex without.
It's not something you buy.
Or something you take.
In fact, there's only one way to get it.
It has to be given to you, freely.
It's consent.
Because sex without it isn't sex.
It's rape. Consent.
If you don't get it, you don't get it.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
They said I have troll teeth.
That my voice sounded like a possessed baby doll.
That no one would ever love someone as stupid as me.
That I was fat, ugly.
Disgusting.
The effect of bullying is potent.
We will no longer be the silent majority.
Now, when you see online bullying, there's something you can do about it.
We're gonna take action with the I.
I am a witness.
I am a witness.
I am a witness.
I am a witness.
I am a witness, and so are you.
Thank you for joining us. We are in the middle of the debate for the candidates running in the Democratic primary in the 36th Senatorial District. We did get a phone call from Alvin Ponder, who is not here. He said his wife took ill, and so he was not able to make it tonight. We're going to proceed nonetheless. I believe we're up to you, Mr. Mulrain. The next question for you is about ethics. Ethics is obviously an ongoing hot topic in Albany. There was concern that the legislature fell well short of dealing with it last year, not addressing the LLC loophole for one. What about this idea that would eliminate outside income for legislators like the city council passed recently? Would you support that? Is that a pathway to getting a stronger sense of ethics in Albany?
I don't. I mean, there's a whole lot of other things you can do, but I think that's one of them. But I would say that if you're talking about income, you probably should limit the income. I don't know, totally eliminate the income, but limit the income that outsiders can get. I think there needs to be more transparency more than anything. Where's the money coming from? Where do they work for? How much do they make each year? And how is that money being spent? I think the problem with Albany and the ethics with Albany, ethical problem with Albany is the transparency. Everyone has this under the cover and they're getting money from people who hiding behind the LLC, and that takes away from the people in the community. And then people wonder why certain bills and certain legislation don't get passed, funding don't come to the community like it should, because people are underhandedly receiving monies from various places that you can't, you don't know where it comes from. So I think that the transparency should be much greater, and the transparency has to do with every single dime, where it comes from and who it comes from, so that we can see that clearer.
Okay, others? Ms. Johnson?
I absolutely believe that we should limit outside income. That's a ethics reform that needs to happen. Not just with that, but also with campaign finance reform. We have politicians who are using campaign finance for attorneys. They're going on vacations. We have a candidate who went to Puerto Rico. In this election, they went to Puerto Rico. They paid for the hotel, they paid for the cab, and then they decided to refund themselves back the money. So I've got problems with that as well. That loophole, we have to stop the loophole and make sure that corporations don't circumvent the small donor limits on it. And so there are monies that is given to Democratic clubs, like housekeeping money. I think we should limit that as well. If you look at the candidates here, you can go online and see who has given them money for their campaign. And if you did, you would be really surprised to see that there are businesses who gave them that. And not only that, you can also, as a Democratic candidate, get money transferred from other committees as well. So I think that really needs to be tightened up and make sure that the people who really want to run, the grassroots people, are able to do that. And also on the state level, have campaign finance like you would in the state, a 1-to-6 match. There isn't a match on the state level.
Okay, others?
I definitely agree with the transparency in government. I think there needs to be more power and less power to the legislative leaders and more power to the legislators themselves, as well as us, community. Regular folks. There has to be transparency and accountability, which we don't have. When you think about the fact that, the closing of the LLC loophole is so important, when you think about the fact that one person can give from multiple companies the same amount, that is so unjust and unfair for those that want to run a quality race. And so I'm definitely for that. Definitely for that.
Outside
Mr.
income
Bailey.
definitely should be limited. There should be some sort of formula. People have earned their professional licensures, and you don't want to necessarily take away from things that they've been able to build up for their entire life. But it should be limited. Me personally, I would not take outside income. Even working for the state, I did not practice as an attorney as soon as I began working with the state of New York. So personally, I would not take outside income. However, I do not know everybody else's particular circumstance. But with the issue of transparency, you have folks up here who have not even filed their 32-day pre-primary notice, and we're approaching the 11-day pre-primary notice, and they want to talk about transparency and openness and seeing how the actual money is spent. If you look at my campaign finance filing, you will see every donation that I've got is itemized. Every transfer in, every transfer out, you see who it is, you see a note. Everything is documented accordingly. Below or above the legal limit, everything is accounted for if you look at my filing.
Can I just add one thing
Sure.
to that? Also, those politicians who are convicted need to forfeit their pensions as well. They should forfeit that.
Mr. Mulrain, you get the final word here.
Vote for me September 13th. I'm the candidate for the choice, and that will actually make sure these all this ethical legislation go into effect.
Ms. Johnson, you started out the program wanting to talk about education, so let's talk about education. Among the many challenges is the balance between traditional public and charter schools. So let's look at this with a two-part question. What do you make of the current cap on charter schools? Too high, too low, just right? And the second part of it is space for charters is an increasing question, as many are concerned that co-locations are eroding much needed facilities for traditional public schools. How do you balance the existence of traditional public schools and charter schools in the 36th Senatorial District?
Okay, so I'm going to start off saying that I've sued the Department of Education in reference to co-locations. Co-locations are not equal. When you have a co-location from a charter school to a public school building, it actually offsets everything. You have a charter school that comes in with brand new, shiny, spanking new computers, and while the kids that are there are looking at it and saying, why don't I have that? Parents are outraged. Now, I will say this, in Mount Vernon, it's a little bit different because the charter schools in Mount Vernon, they completely did not want it at all. In the Bronx, we're not against charter schools. It's the co-location of charter schools. It's a problem having breakfast at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm sorry, not breakfast, lunch at 8 o'clock in the morning, and having to balance the rest of the schedule of the building. We have buildings that are not getting along with each other. Principals are not getting along. They're not sharing spaces with each other. I think it needs to have a cap. I think that we're privatizing our education, and you have charter schools who are paying their executive directors $400,000. They have war chests really to keep it and perpetuating it going by actually putting money into the coffers of politicians, and they have those politicians in their pocket. They just recently got money, and Governor Cuomo said that they could, if they can't find space in a regular DOE building, that we're going to have to pay their rent. And so that's taxpayer money that really shouldn't go to a charter school.
Others? Mr. Mulrain first and Mr. Bailey.
I'm looking at co-location as segregation. I just think that when you look at the segregated schools, you have one side that looks like the haves and another side that look like the have-nots. You have one side that looks like a lot is going on in terms of their activities. Then you have another side that looks like they're scraping for their last dollar, and the kids are not being serviced with the necessary books and everything else that they need to be serviced with. I think that it just looks bad for New York City. And you have to remember, New York City is probably one of the most segregated places in terms of racial diversity in the even in the state and even in the country. So we have to look at those things, and when we start putting co-location and charter schools into public schools, we have to really be clear of how we go about that. And in terms of the cap, I don't know, the cap has to, I think we should put a cap until we get these things straight.
Mr. Bailey?
Well, again, we should put a moratorium on the amount of charter schools that we're putting in until we figure out exactly what the proper formula is. It's all about making sure you strike the right balance. I'm not against charter schools, but co-location is problematic. As Mr. Moraine mentioned, it does set up a modern-day caste system where children in the public schools do not have access to the area where the charter school children do, but the charter school children can walk freely around the building. We need to make sure we're examining these issues in their totality and coming up with the best answer. And the best answer is always what's in the best interest of the child. That's what it always has to come back to. What are we doing for our children at the end of the day?
Thank you. Ms. English?
I'm for the quality education of my child, whether it's from charter or from DOE. And when I think about the co-location issue, I'm also thinking about the money that's been held up in government by Cuomo that he's sitting on, that is for the resources should be going to our schools. So while we're sorting through that, where is the money to improve our schools? And so if there are in a co-location position right now, why don't we take the money and just improve where DOE is? Because one of the things that we're not answering, and it's pretty tough, is that has the charters been effective, and has DOE been effective, and what are they doing with our children? We need to look at it a little bit deeper. It's not just about co-location. It's about, are we educating the total child? Are we doing right by our child in DOE versus charter, or charter versus DOE? So we need to look a little bit deeper. It's not just about co-location. I don't want us to just focus on that.
Ms. Johnson?
So there's a big issue with contract for excellence money where the state owes us. We want that money for our children. But one of the biggest things that happened in District 11, which encompasses the 36th Senatorial District, is that while we're trying to put charter schools, and I'm not against charter schools in their own building, but we have kids who are in trailers. How do we get our kids out of trailers when we're starting up new charter schools and our Department of Education buildings, and we have tons of trailers that have outlived their life in their expiration, trailers that have mold, trailers that have raccoons in them and squirrels in them. And while they're sitting in a trailer, we have charters opening up in our schools, and I think that's unfair. And I think the Department of Education, and including Chancellor Farina, who I have a very good relationship with, they need to start setting some type of timetable in getting our kids out of trailers.
It shouldn't be just focused. I want our priority to be getting the resources from the governor to take care of our DOE.
That's going to lead right into my next question for you, Ms. English. You stated in our video voter guide that you believe in free state college tuition, which reflects the National Democratic Party platform agenda. There's such simple words to say, free college. They sound so good to everyday Americans. But if it's left to Albany to enact here in New York, where the Senate has been Republican dominated, how do you get it passed? And even if you can get it passed, how do you pay for it?
You know what? I think the first thing is, I know it's Republican dominated, but I'm hopeful, and I think the rest of us are hopeful, that it will not be Republican dominated for long. That it will be the Democrats will take over the House. And let me give you a background on why I'm so passionate about that piece. When I went to when I've gone to London and watched how the UK, different parts of the UK, and watched how their children get free education through college, etc., I was really baffled by how inequitable it is here in New York City, New York State, where not only are we suffering with them being able to pay for education, but we're suffering with an increase in debt load when they graduate. And so you find out that a lot of these kids, when they leave college and they graduate, and some of us adults that are here, we find that they end up, their credit score ends up being affected even by that. So if we want to improve the conditions of our community, of our district, we have to have free education, because the reason why a lot of our black and brown are not in schools is simply because of affordability.
Mr. Bailey first, then you, sir.
We fund that by charging the rich their fair share. Right, we're not trying to penalize anybody's success. We want New York City, New York State, we want the entire world. We want you to thrive, but you should pay your fair share. That's how we should fund it. And if you recall, CUNY once upon a time was free. There are many people who I speak to at senior centers, and I go to different functions throughout the community, and they got their BA and BS from CUNY, from Lehman, and it was free. And I don't want to be accusatory, but I went to a higher education forum in the city council, and City Councilman Jumani Williams said it was not until the complexion of CUNY changed, literally and figuratively, did they start charging tuition. So I think that we need to make sure we're taking a strong look at making sure that our black and brown children are educated well, and that if you're making a little bit more, you should pay a little bit more in taxes.
One historical note before we let you speak. I did attend CUNY and they added a slight charge in my senior year, but largely it was essentially without cost. But that's an aside from what's going on tonight.
Let's make the connection also that, we're paying all these high tuitions. They're constantly trying to get at City College and increase their fees every year. Every year tuition is going up. And then when you graduate, you really have no job. I think the job market the college and the job market are not consistent with one another. And I think that we need to make sure that before these young people graduate, my daughter has to come back home. I got to try to find her a job, and she's out there trying to get a job. And still, even when she gets a job, the wages are not up to standard, so she still has to live at home. It's a problem out there. And I think that free education is not saying that, as stated, and I had that on my point as well, let the rich pay for it. We give them so many benefits in New York State as it is. Let them pay for it, and children be able to go to school, and those who own corporations will benefit from it. They'll have that tie benefit from it, because we'll have young people graduating and getting a job, but we have to get that job market straight when they get out there.
Hey, we're running out of time. I want to get at least one more question. Yeah, we certainly will give you a chance. I just wanted to remind you to let's keep the answers a touch shorter so we can fit everything in. Go ahead.
Okay, so I have an AKA name called Scholarship Lady, and I do scholarship workshops for students to go to college. And I know that it's extremely expensive. My daughters were able to go to SUNY Binghamton and graduate with very little debt and absolutely no tuition. So what I wanted to say was that yes, we do need to have free education, but we need to offset it. I know we're saying tap the 1%, but if you look at the prison, the education to pipeline to prison, it's cheaper for us to send everyone to college than to house people in prison. So if you're talking about $60,000, $70,000 to house someone in prison per year, we can actually send each and every one of them to school, and that will pay for itself. And if you look at it that way, it's definitely cost effective.
Actually, it's more like 80,000, and for the juveniles, it's more like over 100,000. But I'm going to make 2 points real quickly. One is with the, my daughter actually went to like Babson College. When she graduated, they had to write her a check. That's how much scholarship she had at a 3% school of color. And so when I think about the systemic roots, the reasons why we have the high violence rate in our district, I'm thinking of education and jobs. And until we get this passed, we're going to see that cycle continue.
All right. Mr. Bailey, this will be our final question for the evening. Senior citizens face unique issues because they have to pay rent on fixed incomes. They have challenges when it comes to transportation. If they are not self-sufficient at home, getting proper nutrition can be a problem as well. How can a freshman state senator positively impact the lives of senior citizens?
Advocacy is really it in one word, but I've been advocating for seniors. White Plains Road, there was a senior building. I helped to get their boiler turned back on. I've helped to save seniors from eviction in the senior homes. And what we need to make sure we're doing is we're protecting our seniors with scree and dree, and that there's actually legislation that I would propose to make sure that anybody over the age of 65, if you have a mortgage, if your mortgage is satisfied, that the property tax would freeze until the sale or transfer of the property. We need to make sure that we're protecting our seniors, because what our seniors are doing now is that if they have a mortgage and their taxes are so high, right, they're renting out rooms to strangers. This creates a public safety issue. This creates a hazardous condition for our seniors to live, and literally without them, we would not be here. So I'm all for advocacy and issues with our seniors.
Okay,
This is
go right down the road.
This is
sir.
where being a religious leader in the pastor comes into play, because you got a lot of seniors in the church.
Right.
And one thing they always complain about is what they're choosing between their meal and their medicine. And it's a shame that they have to choose between those two, which means that New York State is, and I would say the United States is not doing a good job with our seniors. We need to fight harder for them. I've been fighting for them for all my life to make sure. I have a mother, I have aunts, I fight for them all my life. And just with that notion of home ownership, and they have to leave their homes when they get a certain age because they can't afford it, because the mortgage is going up, the taxes are going up on them. We have no real assistance for our seniors, and we need to do better.
I don't want to cut you off, but I want to make sure there's time for everybody.
Thank you.
So I also run a community center in Eastchester Heights, and we have a lot of seniors where we do have scree forms and DREE forms where they can come in and fill it out, because a lot of times they can't see it, they don't know what's asking for, but also they need to, if those who own property need to get property tax relief as well. And one of the things that's in the Senate that's going on now is that right now only 20% of their income is exempt from income tax. So they're proposing that next year it's 25%, and it's going to go all the way up to $40,000 that's going to be tax exempt, and that's going to help them paying income tax.
Ms. English, and then, sir, you'll get the final word.
We also need to protect our seniors from the fear that they live in on a day-to-day basis and the crime that occurs in their neighborhood. I lead here in criminal justice reform. I've created one of the first alternative to arrest program. I'm the only candidate that helped reduce gun violence by almost 50%. I created the first People's Police Academy, a community-led academy that allows officers to go through an academy led by the community to train and orientate them where they serve, but not necessarily live. Reason why I'm saying that is I see public safety as a shared responsibility. And when our seniors begin to see these measures implemented, they feel safer in their own community. And that's what I advocate
you'll get
for.
the final word.
In addition to housing, we need to make sure our seniors stay active, that we need to make sure we're fully funding programs so that they can remain to go on their senior trips, their activities that they love. I was at a senior day today, and it was such a pleasure to see all of these seniors having fun playing bingo. Don't mess with their bingo game now. But, you know, they have so much fun there, and it's great to see them engaged. So we need to make sure we're fully funding senior citizens. And also, Co-op City is the largest NORC in the country, naturally occurring retirement community. So we need to make sure we're protecting Co-op City at all costs and protecting the rest of the 36th Senatorial District and our seniors there.
Mount Vernon.
Candidates, I thank you for this spirited and well-spoken dialogue. I think we've come to the point in the program right now where we're ready for closing statements. And so I guess by original decision, it will go to Mr. Bailey to be first.
Well, Mr. Axel Bank and my fellow candidates, I thank you for the time and being here with such a spirited debate. I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm an attorney, I'm a family man, and I know what working families are facing. My candidacy is not just about today, it's about tomorrow and the multiple tomorrows thereafter. After the last sign is taken down, after the last vote is counted, what's the lasting legacy of a legislator? We need to make sure that tomorrow is taken care of. One of my favorite quotes is that you may plant a tree under the shade, but you may never sit, but you still plant that tree. That tree provides oxygen to breathe, shade to sit under, and those fruits for the next generation. So on September 13th, I hope you will choose somebody for the next generation, Jamal Bailey. Vote for me, please.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Mr. Mulrain, to you.
Thank you, Gary, for just allowing us to be here on this evening. It was very spirited and very great to just be in the audience in order to talk about the issues. I think we've talked about the issues. As president of the Williamsbridge NAACP, I fought hard for civil rights, against police misconduct, and for quality education. As school board member, I fought for quality education and vocational education. As a pastor, I fight for seniors, I fight for youth. I'm not without a fight. I think that when you come into this, you don't need weak leadership, you need proven leadership. You need someone who's not connected solely to the machine, but someone who is out there willing and ready to fight for the constituents and give them the services that they need. You have to look at the history. The history says more than the talk. I can tell you all the stuff that I'm going to do, but you have to look at what I've done. And I've done a lot in order to make sure this district survives. So vote for me, September 13, Edward Mulrain, 1A on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Johnson, to you.
Yes, to the parents and to the grandparents and those who have children in school, I am the only one here that has been a former president of a school board. And I will say this to you, that if I look to my left and to my right, when it comes to advocacy, you have to attend your school board. And no one on this panel has attended the school board, and I've been there for over 6 years. So if you want someone to advocate for your children, please vote for me. But I also want to mention that this seat that is held by Ruth Hassel Thompson was the only female seat in the district. We like to keep it female, and we like to perpetuate an environment where women can run for a political office. And I'm very shocked that I'm very shocked that the political machine would not put another woman in this seat. I don't want to lose it. I was voted as one of the most influential women 2016, and I just want to say, vote for me if you want education and someone to do it right. Pamela Hamilton Johnson, September 13th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. English,
I
you get
too
the
was
final word.
I too was voted one of 25 most influential women in the Bronx, also recipient of the Sojourner Truth Award. The cries I've heard from you throughout my district is that we are tired of the status quo. We are tired of the machinery. We are tired that there has been seemingly no democratic process, everyone handpicking who they want to lead. And if we are tired of the status quo of the machinery, then why would we elect their offspring? My district heart is crying out for change, and I am the change that the people want and need. And that's because they know I will fight for them, as I have already, for men, women, boys, and girls. You can't tell me that you're going to pull up your sleeves and get in the dirt, so to speak, if you haven't already done that. It becomes a bunch of empty promises and empty words. I have a proven track record as a proven leader, not a freshman leader. I have a love for people and a care for community. This passion is going to take me to Albany. I'm taking your issues, I'm taking your concerns, and we're going to win this together. So don't feel obligated because you get calls and door knocks from elected officials telling you who you should vote for. Follow your heart and vote for Q English, September 13th, row 5, 5A in Mount Vernon. Right. I am the change you want to see. Thank you.
Thank you. Ed Mulrain, Jamal Bailey, Pamela Johnson, and Q English, thank you so much for your service, and thank you certainly for participating tonight. You might not agree on everything. I know you will all agree with me that every eligible voter should come out to vote on September 13th. Viewers, please note it is a primary election, so only registered voters enrolled in the Democratic Party in the 36th senatorial district can vote in this race. Also note that October 14th is the last date to register to vote in the November 8th national election. It's also the last date to enroll in a party for all the 2017 primary elections, which will include the primaries for mayor, controller, public advocate, borough presidents, and city council, but that's for another day. Also, we do want to thank our co-sponsors, the League of Women's Voters. For more information, please call the League at 212-725-3541. We want to thank you for watching. Thanks to our producer, Jayla Jubetis, who does an unbelievable job, our director, Michael Leone, to Helen, to the cast of thousands around us, and also to the candidates here. Thank you very much. Don't forget to vote September 13th. Good night.
A boy born in Joplin, Missouri was fascinated by anything with wheels and a motor. The odds of him going on to fascinate millions with his talent? 1 in 260,000. The odds of this born racer having 157 career top 10 finishes in NASCAR? 1 in 125 billion. The odds of him winning both the Daytona 500 and the Brickyard 400 in the same year? 1 in 195 million. The odds of a child being diagnosed with autism? 1 in 68. I'm NASCAR driver Jamie McMurray, and my niece has autism. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs.
It's not always easy being a dad.
Do you have panda asthma too? Does that run in the family? This is the home of the most priceless kung fu artifacts.
But when you make an effort,
Dad, we're not supposed to touch anything. Oh, sorry. Go along, son.
It's always worth it.
Whoa! Master!
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
gonna get you. I'm gonna get you.
Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov to learn more.